Hey,
bocce.
bocce's fun.
It's fun. It is very fun.
And
Bocce's a lot of fun.
how it improves
I recommend it.
with alcohol.
Well,
Yeah, my accuracy definitely, with that and with bags,
By yourself?
improves.
Why didn't you tell
I have
me?
a phobia.
I would have gone with you. Oh, I went to Woodstock.
The only thing I don't like about that is there's too much
No.
walking.
I went to get contacts.
Because you're constantly going back and forth, picking them up, and
Not if you're doing
No,
two
not
on
if you're
two.
doing 2-on-2, because then you've
Stay
got
right
your
where you are.
your teammates over there, and
Yeah.
you're just standing, you know,
I don't
my
even think about
brother-in-law
going to Panera. I should have, but I didn't want to fight the traffic on 47.
made this.
They need to do something like that. That's ridiculous. No matter what time of day, it's ridiculous. Nope. You still have to go down through all
where
that
your-
two-lane crap.
Where your side of the bags
Oh,
is,
boy.
and so put your beer right in it, and it's right at
Hornet's hat.
standing height. It's- Told me should
I like those little hats with the ties on them.
ask for the trouble.
My kids used to have a SpongeBob one. It was yellow and it had the big SpongeBob face and had the little ear things and it tied. It was so cute. Nobody's here? That's it? Thought there'd be more people. Maybe I will stay.
It's like this one. All of his body. But I think, I guess it depends.
Jay.
All that's being decided tonight is whether or not the petition is
Sending, recommending
correct.
to the
Not even
council.
recommending approval.
Right, but just
recommending
recommend.
that the amendment be put to a public hearing at
Okay.
a future date.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, can call this meeting to order. Administration Committee meeting for City of Harvard, October 11th, 2023. All committee members are present. Any public comments for any items that aren't otherwise on the agenda? I note that item number 4 needs to be removed, discussion of the tax levy, and that'll be next month.
Yes, and in that place, Alderwoman Haderlein, if we could schedule a November meeting tonight.
Okay.
That would be great. We have a
Okay.
couple of dates if they work for
Okay.
everyone.
Great. So item number 3, proposed budget amendments, police pension funding.
Okay, the first one is actually an amendment that was pre-approved and basically a matter of housekeeping. When I presented the amendment, I presented it under the transfer out account line item, which when I went to post it, I realized when I did the budget this past year, I created a new account for the pension fund to separate it from everything else. So nothing else has changed as far as the amount or anything. I just need to note for the record that the correction will be made, or I'm sorry, the budget amendment will be made in the pension fund transfer account, not the general fund transfer account. So just needed your approval on that.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll move.
Second.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next item, reallocate budgeted funds from Route 14 sidewalks to engineering services for post office sidewalk project.
Okay, and this is following on the heels of the Transportation Committee meeting in which it was decided to take the money from the sidewalks this year and put it towards engineering because the sidewalk project was not a go. And I did mention at that meeting that this would be forthcoming, so basically removing the $100,000 from the sidewalk budget, allocating it to the engineering budget so that it reflects properly at the end of the fiscal year.
Any questions? Motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve.
Thank
I'll
you.
second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, so item number 4, let's just schedule the November meeting date for, can we do that?
Yeah, so I was just going to add a note that the reason that this is being postponed for the tax levy is because the county has not finished their part before the city can do theirs. So we're just waiting for the county to finalize their numbers.
Thank
We're
you.
a little early, so. So for the date in November, Administrator Leone would also like to try to present at that meeting revised policy on
The new employee manual.
the new employee manual, which is just basically being proofed at this point. And so we were wondering if we could do either the 16th or the 21st, if that worked for everybody.
16th would work better for me.
16th works for me. I mean, my thought is if we can put it earlier before the Thanksgiving holiday, that would be wiser. We'll have less issues with people not being able to make it.
16th is hard for me because we have our major fundraiser the next 2 nights.
I should say, when does the Roomba or whatever classes start
Those
on
don't start till
Thursdays?
January, I believe.
In January,
I think
okay,
he's
because
looking
I
at-
know it's on Thursday nights.
Yeah,
so.
he's looking for after the first of the year to start those. So worst case scenario would be the 8th for timeline.
So
but-
our normal schedule that we
Our
normally do.
normal meeting. I kind of wanted to avoid that date only because if the final numbers aren't in, we're in the same boat. They're a little behind this year because they have some staffing shortages over there.
You can't do the 15th?
The 15th, I'm in Mexico.
Oh.
I don't get back till late that night. But actually, I might be back, but I don't want to push it. Yeah, I'm gone the 9th through the 15th.
Okay.
Unless you wanted to present the levy.
I could take a shot at it.
Okay, so we could do the 15th. I could have everything ready to go. Well, no, we're still in the same boat if the numbers aren't in by the 8th, because then I'm not here.
What about the 21st?
21st that didn't work for you, right?
I mean, the other 3, yeah, but if the other 3 can make it, I guess I just won't be here.
Or the 22nd.
That's
That's
the
the night
Wednesday
before
Yeah,
Thanksgiving.
no, yeah, it's tough for other
Make it.
people. I mean, I could probably make it, but yeah, I don't want to put people here on the night before Thanksgiving. Yeah, unless you guys are fine with it.
Does the 20th not work?
20th works.
There's a Parks Board meeting that night, so if you just
Oh, yeah.
do it outside the Parks Board meeting.
What time is that meeting? 6:30?
Typically is 6 o'clock.
6, yeah.
So we could do it after that?
You could plan for because Parks Board is typically about 45 minutes. to
An hour.
So you could,
7:30?
just plan for 7, and we'll try to keep the Parks Board meeting fast moving.
Does that work for you, Alderman Perkins?
If I can make it, I can make it. I already scheduled myself to be on shift that day at Harvard. Because I normally don't have meetings those days, that's why I picked it.
Right.
Sorry.
I don't have any problem with it, so.
Okay, 20th, Charlie,
20th at 7?
at 7? Okay,
What is it, the 20th?
20th at 7. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 5, proposed ordinance amending section 27.04 E2 and 3 regarding city sound permit.
Yeah, this is the noise, the suggested change in the verbiage regarding noise to include loud sounds beyond like a reasonable person would tolerate. I believe a copy of it is actually in your packet. And this would be section E 2 and 3 that would have the change.
Are there any questions?
Make a motion to approve the language.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Yay. Okay, item number 6, proposed ordinance establishing regulations for backyard chickens.
Donovan, you want to,
The notes.
microphone?
Thank you. I always forget. I took the notes that you had suggested from the previous meeting and then through Lori's amazing minutes and added them into the new proposed ordinance for your review. And I can go over them one by one if you'd like, or they're redlined in here. One of the suggestions was to broaden coverage of violations and methods of enforcement, so we added a sentence. The sentence was added to section F1, stating everything that's listed as requirement, if not followed, would be a violation. So that kind of cleaned it up. There was one area that had a fine in one section and then fine amounts in a different section, so that was also cleaned up. ID bans, that requirement was added as section C.14. We included the $300 initial fee as recommended.
Or, C14, ABC1,
I think you meant 14.
14? 14. 1C14,
1C14?
or C14, right? So.
Yeah.
ABC14, leg bands.
For the ID bans, yes.
Yes, okay.
The $300 initial fee was added as section FC.
C, right here.
Address renters and to spell out with more clarity on what provisions are enforced. That was included as section C13.
C13.
Then the proposed ordinance should also include language to require some type of beginner's educational class with certification submitted to the city. It was stated that this may be stricken from final version. I found a great YouTube link, a YouTube video by the Utah State University Extension Office that covered pretty much everything that you need to know about raising backyard chickens. After watching the 27-minute video, I decided that I don't want to raise backyard chickens because it's a lot of work. So I'm hoping that others understand what they're getting into. And we can require, we could host maybe, a class a week or 2 a week if we're getting a lot of applications in this room. And, I don't think we need to go as far as making them take a test, but then signing off on their permit that they did watch the 27-minute video and understand what's involved.
And during the discussion, this was one that was kind of bantered back and forth. So just for the sake of this meeting, we added it into the draft. But again, like any of these other suggestions, it can be stricken.
Mm-hmm.
And that was all that was suggested to be
What section
included.
was that added? Is that further? Oh, here it is, D. Whatever this, FD for the video. It looks like you changed the fines to be between 50 and 750.
Correct. Yep. In one section, it said 750, and then the other section, I believe, said 50, so we cleaned it up to have it all on one line.
Now, don't we, with our fines, typically refer to the fines section of the code?
Yeah, there's an SOF code. What chapter is that in? One.
I thought we were getting away from having fines specified in the
Yeah,
ordinances.
that was something we were trying to do, that
Yeah.
that probably predates
Oh, yeah.
Donovan coming on board. So we're
I like
looking to
that.
put fines into a separate
Yeah.
section so that we don't have to keep changing.
Yeah.
When a fine changes, we don't have to change every ordinance. We just change the list of fines. So it sounds like you need this to be changed to refer to the section or chapter 1. And then have that annotated in chapter 1.
Yeah, because we'd have to add that, to the list.
Just to clarify procedurally, tonight, the ordinance is not being recommended for approval, recommended for denial. This body is merely considering whether or not this will be sent to the city council to make a determination whether or not they would like to propose a zoning text amendment that would ultimately first go before the Planning and Zoning Commission for a public hearing. Planning and Zoning would ultimately make a recommendation either in favor of or against the zoning text amendment, and then the city council would ultimately make a final determination. So the only thing that's being considered tonight is whether or not this body recommends to the city council that they consider proposing a zoning text amendment regarding the allowance of chickens in backyards. Just to clarify that, so this body is not deciding today if this ordinance or this language is going to be passed. It's merely whether or not a zoning text amendment will be presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
In addition to that, I just wanted to note for the record that we did receive one of the petitions, and each of you have received a copy of it, so that you have that to review as well. So just want to make sure the record reflects that you have received at least one of the petitions that are circulating.
And Attorney Clifton, one thing that I'm thinking of with item D that's on the screen, if we should just state confirmation that a backyard chicken 101 course provided by the city has been completed, in case that video is ever removed, or just to clean it up a little bit.
Yeah, if you provide a hard link, if the link changes, that becomes a problem, right?
Yeah, I think you could just provide that link or other class provided or permitted by the city.
Thank you.
So one of the, one of the thoughts I had about the video and the fee was, I don't know about necessarily requiring that people take a video and pay a $300 fee. I mean, my thought was maybe the fee's less if they do the video. Then it's a lower fee, so it's more of an incentive to do it, and it's their choice.
Encouraging them
Yeah.
to take the course.
Yeah, so, like, maybe it's $100 if they've done the video.
The only thing I would say, playing devil's advocate, is it really going to be effective? Because I'll be honest, I do a lot of webinars through work and training videos through work, and just like, we just had our annual harassment video that required us to participate in the video for, I think it was like 45 minutes straight. A lot of people simply just get some coffee and let the video go and come back and click OK. So I don't necessarily, I like the idea of providing the information should they want it, but considering we can't necessarily guarantee retention of the information, or I just look at it and basically see it would just be a coupon that they're just using to get around the fee, whether they take it seriously or not. Just not saying that it's a good idea or bad idea, just playing devil's advocate for I know how people behave. I did actually have a couple of discussions with a couple of personal friends that happen to have chickens that own farms on the unincorporated parts of Harvard over the last few weeks, and I will just convey that none of them recommended moving forward with it as farm owners and chicken owners. One specifically mentioned that her concern is that outside, we talked about everything else, so I'm not going to rehash all the different discussions and everything we already did. But one of the things that she pointed out that was a concern of hers that a lot of her other farm owners have to battle regularly is rats. That was just her specific thing that she was pointing out, was that it was a constant battle of theirs was to control the rat population. for what it's worth. But since they typically are not included in our city incorporated business, it was just passing, it was informational conversations I was having, so pass along their recommendations.
My question is do we ever get, because I was looking through my emails, I didn't see it, but from Sarah Berg, from council, did we get the answers for the 3 questions, or the 3 topics she wanted to answer, like the city ordinance proposing, changing the matrix of the ordinance, asking, is that legal for council, do you know?
So the way the UDO is structured is that in various zoning districts, there are permitted uses and there are conditional uses. Within permitted uses, there are various accessory uses allowed. What that means, for example, is a pool, right? In a residential district, and I'm not talking specifically to Harvard here because I don't have the UDO memorized, but just as a general example, generally a pool is an accessory use in which a city could put certain conditions that, if met, are allowed in that residential district. So the way that this draft ordinance is structured, using it as an accessory use to a residential use, in our opinion, is legally appropriate. Now, I think the resident raises a valid concern about having it as a conditional use, where there would be, every time somebody wanted a chicken, you'd essentially have to have a public hearing where they'd have to come in and satisfy those conditions. That's a policy decision the city ultimately has to make as to whether or not they want, and who knows if you're gonna have 3 applicants for a permit or 200, right? If you have 200, you're gonna have 200 public hearings where you're gonna have to essentially, even on a conditional use, if the person can meet the requirements of a conditional use, you can't just unilaterally decide that you don't want them to have a chicken there. If they meet the standards of a conditional use, they get to have a chicken. What it does require is a public hearing whereby this body could, or not this body, but planning and zoning and ultimately city council could make assurances that those conditions are specifically met. If they have questions, they could ask how those questions are going to be met. With an accessory use, that process still happens, but it's generally staff-driven, where the staff is reviewing the application, making sure the requirements for that accessory use are satisfied.
Thank you.
Charlie, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. I want to thank Mr. Day for putting this together. I think he did an excellent job. And he certainly tried to meet the requests of everyone that we heard from in the last meeting. I think there's something in here for everybody, the pros and the cons, because one of the things that I think is true, I'm not positive, but there was a big concern about enforcement, and with having an ordinance like this, with specifically, what was required, it seems like that gives you some ammunition to go back to the people who are having chickens that illegally, and enforce this ordinance on those people so that everybody's doing the same thing. They will have to get permits, they will have to have their coop inspected, and so on. So there's even something for the people who had those concerns in this. That's a plus for me. And it's enough, I think, to cause me to say that it probably should go before the zoning commission and for their review and recommendation. I know that's not a motion.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. If you come up.
Donovan, can you give her? Thank you.
Sarah Berg, 508 Old Orchard. My question is, I just FOIA'd information regarding complaints that we've received. And I have 12 in the last 3 years, well, 3.5 years. My understanding is only one is in compliance, even though they are issued these notices of abate nuisance. There are still with chicken. So my question is how exactly does this abate this situation? Because they're clearly not doing anything with this notice to abate. How does this do anything to correct that situation?
Thank you. And I'll just, I mean, that is a valid, I think that's a very valid question, is, yeah, is, you know, what is our success in, you know, bringing people into compliance who currently aren't in compliance with this, recognizing that, that it's already an issue, where they're not allowed and people are having them. I mean, I was at a friend's house in Dan's district the other week, and my friend said, "Oh, the neighbor's got a couple chickens." I look over, got a couple chickens running around in the backyard, and I'm like, "Oh my God." Yeah, so I'm just, I mean, I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, I think I don't want to speak for Ian completely here, but if we cite someone for having chickens or any violation, and we go back and we don't see chickens, it gets closed out. If I know in the 9 months before I started here, Ann was running the department by herself. We've talked about it over the last several months, especially when I first started, about things that she needs to get caught up on. Code enforcement was the biggest priority, so she's been doing a good job of getting caught up on a lot of those things that we're falling behind with her doing inspections, building inspections, trying to keep up on plan reviews and things like that. So I don't know, I can't speak to 3.5 years, but if she goes back and sees that there's no chickens, then it gets closed out and we move on to the next one. So knowing that, and I appreciate Mrs. Berg bringing that to our attention, we can go through that list now and follow up on all those to make sure that everyone's in compliance. And would love to know where you were hanging out in Dan's troubled neighborhood, see where these chickens are residing, so we can
I have my
abate that
own
nuisance.
short list of things, but, you know, it becomes an issue of, you know, what's a priority and what's worth making
Right.
hay out of.
Right. I think we have another.
Quick question. Related to this?
I'm
pretty loud without
Name and address, please.
This is actually a little more directed.
Wait, just before we begin, because for our record keeping and to follow state statute, please state your name and address, and then,
J. Wolf, 800 Lincoln Street,
thank you.
Ralph and Sue Henning's old house for the kids here. This is a question for council. If we go through all this and I have my chicken coop, and the inspector comes to inspect my chicken coop, are there blinders on? Because I plan on putting my chicken coop against my fence directly next to the illegal chicken coop that my neighbor has. Will the inspector go, "Oh, I can see that now"?
I have stated that if our code enforcement officer is doing an inspection and they see other non-compliance, they're obligated to follow up on that.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure, because you've even used my example. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Well, one of my thoughts, and first of all, I'll apologize for not using BCC. This has been a bad week for me. I won't even go into it, but I'm sensitive to the enforcement issue on this, and so one of the things I'm wondering is if it makes sense to initially propose more narrow zoning districts, like just A and A1, where this would apply. Those tend to be larger lots, they're more on the periphery, and give us an opportunity, if the council and the zoning board ultimately would recommend it, to demonstrate that, that it can be, that we can manage it.
I mean, my discussions with in-town people pretty much just rehash the same concerns that we already discussed. The two big ones that I had a hard time kind of working my way through was property value concerns. Because if someone perhaps is putting their house up for sale and loses money on it, that's a legitimate legal concern of theirs. You know, as far as having a discussion on that, I'm not an attorney, so, you know, I can't really speak directly to it, but, you know, when it comes down to dollars and cents and property values and things like that, I can only take that as serious as possible, because if someone, for instance, was to put up some kind of, you know, device in their backyard or something like that, or some kind of obnoxious nuisance related thing, and it causes an issue with somebody's property values, then there's usually some kind of back and forth there. Again, I don't really have a way to my concern with that is I don't have a way to speak to that, because that's a concern I've had from multiple people, and I don't really have a good answer. As far as like the enforcement and stuff, that was the same, that was the other half of it, was, you know, how are we going to enforce it? You know, Ann does a phenomenal job. I mean, just in the time that I've been here, you know, Ann's really good at handling code enforcement. I mean, I personally talked to her, and there's been cases where we've had, you know, illegal businesses being run in town that she's been able to handle, and, you know, dilapidated properties that we've been able to actually get in there and get taken care of that have been nuisances for quite some time. We're talking about expansion of development in town, which is going to involve a lot of inspections, a lot of building review, code review. You know, my personal side of that is that, you know, we've got a staff that's looking at potentially in the next couple of years, you know, seeing a huge, you know, we'd like to see a large influx in development. So I kind of look at it and say, you know, what do we want to put on their plate in addition to those things that are coming? I mean, I'd love to be able to just hire a staff, you know, for code enforcement, just to bolster them up so that they can, you know, handle everything. And, you know, it becomes a resource issue for me. I mean, not to say that Ann can't do it. I know our team can do it, but our staff can do anything we direct them to. It's just a matter of when they're working on one thing, they have so many hours in the day, what other things are they having to shelve for later? You know, it's a resource concern on my part, but the property value thing was brought up several times by people in town, and, you know, then the question of how would we enforce it? The same as we do now? That's kind of the only answer I have.
Thank you.
I just wanted to point out that we have
Oh.
people in the crowd that
Thank you.
are ready to, or want to speak.
Thank you. Was it very,
My name is Nisi Rockcastle, and I live at 202 North Jefferson. I wanted to touch on a couple of points that were brought up. Code enforcement, being concerned about making sure everyone's following the rules. Unless I'm mistaken, our tax dollars go to the city for code enforcement. So along with that and the initial $300 fee that would be paid to the city, can we hire somebody extra? Are there any high school kids looking for extra work that could fill that void and do some community service? It would be great to review those options if code enforcement does need help with that. Instead of just letting that fear guide us into saying, no, it is a concern, but it'd be cool if all the options could be looked at to see what possibilities are there. The other thing with, this is just an assumption, but with the upfront cost, I wanted chickens. I can't afford chickens. And I think a lot of people in the city have that issue. If you look at the demographic, I mean, our kids in school, they get free lunch because we are a poorer community. So I don't think we're going to have a whole huge amount of people doing this. They can't, they can't afford it. Now, once again, that's an assumption. But again, anyone who's going to pay $300 for a fee, pay for a chicken coop, pay for a privacy fence, pay for the bedding, pay for all these things, they're not going to throw their money away and screw it up by not going by the book. That it would just have to be a special kind of fool to do that. And then the annual inspections with renewal each year that can cite out any code violations if there are neighbors calling. I mean, I get these concerns, but I think we're focusing on that. We're focusing on the people that might not do it correctly. So we're taking away from the good because of a few bad. And I don't think that's fair. Especially when the people that are for this, for having the backyard chickens, they don't have bad intentions. They want to raise these chickens with their kids. They want their kids to learn. They want eggs for their household, whatever it may be. It's good intentions. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I don't think we're going to have a huge increase or a huge number of people coming in to apply for these permits. It's very expensive and a lot of work. Like you mentioned in the 27-minute video, I'm sure it's way too much. So I don't know. That's just my piece. Yeah, that's it, I suppose. Thanks.
Thank you.
Just for the record, you don't have to raise your hand, just wait to the next person.
Yeah.
And again, just a couple of things I wanted to point out as well, and I apologize, I don't mean to cut into your time there, but because there's a lot of emotions on both sides, like we specified at the last meeting, please be respectful to both sides of this issue, and again, state your name and address. Thank you.
Dave Helmead, 308 North Jefferson Street. I'm kind of disappointed and frankly disgusted with the amount of time that we're spending during this meeting and the last focusing on a myriad of hypothetical negative situations and an overemphasis on how we're going to enforce this, enforce that. It suggests that there's going to be a greater issue with this than I think is fair to assess. I just don't think, excuse me, I think we're making a mountain out of a molehill. And I think as far as property value is concerned, I wonder if the people in Evanston are concerned about their property value because they allow chickens. Evanston's a pretty high-end town. And I think focusing constantly on what we can't do in Harvard and what we're just not able to do and what we're just not able to allow is we're stuck. We're entrenched in this, well, we can't afford it, we can't do it, we don't want people to do it, we don't want to move forward with a whole lot because, I mean, how are we going to enforce it? How are we going to be peeking on people 24/7? I mean, are the inspections not enough? The fees aren't enough? The rules aren't enough? What will be enough? You know, is it going to have to be 24-hour surveillance to make sure that these chickens are in order? And as far as rats are concerned, put the food in a container. All right, we got garbage all over, you know, alleyways and whatnot behind restaurants. That attracts vermin too. We're worried about a couple of people getting chickens. I'm getting tired of it.
If I can just address a part of that. And everyone's entitled to their opinion. I just wanted to emphasize that when they're considering, when the council members are considering this, they do have to be mindful and play out every possible scenario because we try not to go over in taxes or keep increasing taxes. We have to be mindful to everybody. There was a misstatement or a misunderstanding I think it came from this side of it. When it comes to property tax values, chickens would probably be lower on the effect on property value than certain other factors. So just to help your argument, but also help this side.
Going actually on Lou's thing, because I was waiting for that. Since we have council here, how often have you with the other colleagues that you know that have chickens in their municipalities that represent that people come after the city because their value of the house property has gone down?
I can't say that that's been a conversation that we've had very often, so I'm not aware of any, but that's not to say that I'm not making an opinion as to what impact that's not a conversation that we generally have, candidly. So I'm not aware.
How about this one, council? How about property that has been, buildings have been abandoned and they're next to someone else's? Do people in the city hasn't been able to act fast enough to get that property and knock down that building? Have they gone after the city for that because their property value went down?
Not that I'm aware of.
And if I can just add one other thing, again, with everybody here, Ann has done a great job in the short time I've been here. For the longest time, she's been the only building inspector / code enforcement officer that we've had. We've got Donovan now, and his focus is more towards economic development to try to spur more residential development. So Ann is still, for the most part, doing majority of the work, but with Donovan's supervision, and Donovan does help out with the inspections. To be fair, now with the comment about us more homes coming in, with more homes brings in a little bit more tax revenues, and one of the things later in this month that we'll be talking about is potentially adding more staff with. What I've already mentioned to that department, what I'd like to do is try to get one more person in the next year or year and a half or so, in order to help that department out, so that we have someone who specifies or is more specific to building inspection and helping with code enforcement, because we've had, between COVID and short staff, and even just down the road, of being able to help out as far as property tax values and making sure properties are clean, or at least according to code, before she corrects me.
Jessica Helmead, 308 North Jefferson. Where can I submit my petitions? Do you guys want copies of that?
I'll go ahead and
Well, I can't, this is my only copy.
Okay,
So I'm not giving it to you right now.
if you can stop by tomorrow,
Sure.
and see Lori Muller.
I can just make
She's our city
copies of
clerk.
it. Yeah, she's my neighbor.
Yeah, if you give her a copy, yours, what she'll do is she'll actually make a copy and then give the original back.
Perfect.
And then from there, we can add it as part of this packet of information.
No, we're still collecting signatures, so.
If you've got
like,
additional, just
keep bringing
yeah,
them
just
in.
segregate the new
Okay.
ones, and we'll just add to it.
Okay, I'll just write dates at the top.
And Sarah, that would be for you as well.
So what's your pleasure, committee members?
Just to reiterate what I said before, the only thing we would be doing at this point is either not submitting this to council for their decision on whether or not a petition for a text amendment would be filed, or whether or not we would submit it, or we would submit it to council for their ultimate vote on whether or not a petition for a text amendment would be filed. Essentially, what you're deciding is, do you think that this is a issue that city council should have an opportunity to put before the planning and zoning board for a public hearing, at which point objections, people could testify relative to their petition, or relative to their position on whether or not the proposal meets the approval standards for text amendments that are in the UDO. So again, you are not deciding tonight whether or not we are in favor, whether or not you guys are in favor of backyard chickens or not. You're merely considering whether or not you think this is an issue that should go to council, for council to make the ultimate determination as to whether or not a petition on council's behalf be filed.
But we're recommending the language, right? That, I mean,
Yes, but you're recommending language, but council could essentially change it
Sure.
however they wanted to, and then whatever council recommends go in the petition, planning and zoning at a public hearing could ultimately tear that apart, recommend approval or denial to the council, who then ultimately could tear that apart and make changes. So, yes, you essentially would be recommending certain language with the understanding that there is going to be, by my count, at least 3 different opportunities for a body to tweak that language, for whatever that's worth.
yeah, I'm just thinking
Yeah.
in terms of where it starts.
So TJ, sorry, this next step would be to go to the zoning committee or go to city council?
You go to council, because what our UDO requires to initiate a zoning text amendment, it says the city council, the planning and zoning commission, or a property owner in the city or his or her designee may propose a zoning text amendment. So essentially, you would be sending this to city council, who ultimately could make a decision to propose a zoning text amendment. Once that proposal is made by any 3 of those entities, it goes before, there's a public hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission, in which the approval standards for text amendments, which are in, I think it's chapter 14, Article 14 of the UDO, would be considered, and then ultimately a determination or recommendation would be made by Planning and Zoning, which then goes to the City Council for ultimate determination.
That's what I thought.
Just a point of clarification, is it any, you said, is it any one of the 3 or all 3 that would have to?
Just one of them.
Any one of the
I
3.
just want to,
That would be a really high bar.
yeah, I knew what he meant, I just wanted to
Yeah,
make sure.
it says or, City Council, Planning and Zoning, or a property owner in the city.
I just want, this way, our growing number of followers on YouTube can also understand clearly.
So do we have a motion to move this to city council?
We'll have to make sure that enough communication goes out, because we've had a lot of debate on this, and the other council members that haven't been present for all of the debate, we'll have to make sure that they are kept up to speed on it.
Could you speak
At
up?
least what the terms are.
Yeah, just
I mean,
speak
sorry.
into your,
Painful.
Sorry.
yeah.
Well, usually if you're too close to it, then it's deafening, and it's hard to tell on the other end of the room if you're too loud or too soft. I just want to make sure that, so we're clarifying it. Pass it, would go to city council, it'd be on the agenda for October. So we want to make sure that enough communication enough clarity is provided to the other city council members who haven't been present.
Hope they read minutes from committee meetings that they weren't able to attend.
Yeah, I mean, just more like just a
Yeah.
recommendation, like here's the minutes, you're going to want to look through these as
Yeah.
opposed to just cruising through the agenda. And
I believe it's October 24th is the date, and for those, since I have the 2 principal people collecting petitions, if you can get your petitions to us by the Friday before, so that we can make sure it's in the packets for the full.
Oh,
Yes,
absolutely.
I mean, you can, but this'll help them decide.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Any new business?
Just one other thing I wanted to mention. At the next administration committee meeting will also be the county, with all the administrators, emergency management planners, and so on, has been working on a new mitigation plan that has to be approved by each of the communities. So I'll be adding the resolution and a copy of the plan for this committee to review and maybe suggest move on to council. So that'll also be at the next.
The November meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Nothing further from me.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Thank you, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.